Welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you for coming out today, and thank you to those of you who are watching on YouTube. It's good to have everybody here. What a beautiful, I'm not sure if Old Man Winter is quite ready to release his grasp. Had a lot of snow this week, so thank you for braving the snow and whatnot and joining us this morning. The title of my talk today is You Are Resurrected Too. There was once a Sunday school teacher, and she had a group of children, and she was trying to talk about it and perhaps foster a little bit of interest in the crucifixion, resurrection story. And she asked the kids, what they knew about Easter. And the kids all talked about the bunny and chocolate and candy and stuff. And so she was trying to bring it out a little bit more. And she said, well, what about Jesus? Do you know anything about that? And one little boy, oh yeah, we know Jesus, he was killed and they buried him. And she said, yes, and anything else? And the little guy thought for a minute and he says, yeah, and then they dig him up every year, and if he sees his shadow, we have 6 more weeks of winter. She knew she had more to go. My 3 points today, I'm going to talk about many stories, one truth, and I'm going to talk about immortality, and finally, tomb time. Start off with many stories, one truth. The idea of a rebirth, of a renewal, return to life has been with man about as long as man has been on this planet. And it predates all of our written or even oral history. And so it's been around a long, long time. Some of the ones that kind of have endured and exist, still today, Ostra was the Saxon goddess for whom Easter is named. She later became known as Ostara. She was the fertility goddess. Her mythical companion was a rabbit, which is, of course, a rapid reproducer of life. Has a passion for new life and who mythically offers eggs, which is an obvious symbol of fertility. Later on we had Persephone. She was the sweet daughter of the goddess Demeter. She was kidnapped by Hades and taken to the underworld, and there she became the queen of the underworld, but she was able to work out a deal with Hades, and so she would spend half of her time in the underworld with her husband and the other half of the time in the real world. Her annual return to Earth in the spring marks the rebirth of life. We had Horus. This was the Egyptian goddess. Actually, there were 2 Horuses. One was the god Horus, and that was the original Horus. And then later on, I believe it was Isis and Osiris had a child, and they named him Horus, and he was also worshipped. And it was really the beginnings of a monotheistic type of religion. I think they had other gods, but they were much lesser, and it's when we started to focus on a one God type of a thing. And it's also believed to be where the beginnings of the idea of a crucifixion and a resurrection were first introduced, was with the demise of Horus. There was debate among the theologians whether or not Horus was really crucified or not. And in preparing for this talk, I came across this great scholarly work on that very subject by a guy by the name of John Sorensen, and he was quite a historian, and the name of his paper was Horus Manure. True story. And he argued that Horus was really not crucified, that was a euphemism. Then, of course, we have Mithra. And Mithra was the god of Zoroastrianism. And if you recall back to the Christmas story, we had the three wise men. No, they were not the three wise guys. The three wise men, they were thought to be, from Persia, and they would have been Zoroastrians. And once again, we had a virgin birth, happened to be on December 25th, and no, the ancients didn't miss the solstice by 4 days. They knew precisely when the solstice was. The virgin birth on December 25th, and then a crucifixion and a resurrection. I want to talk about our sacred reading today. The person that's before me up here, the platform practitioner, has a really difficult job. I mean, you have to have a lot of balls in the air. You're juggling a lot of things for the platform practitioner. And I just want to thank Linda for doing what a wonderful job. You don't get to see a lot of the things that are going out underneath the current. You've seen that picture of the duck, and on the top of the water, it looks all smooth and everything, and underneath it's pedaling. That's the platform practitioner. That's Linda. So thank you. And I finally figured a couple things out. One of them, Linda would always come up with these awesome sacred readings. I'd just give her this general topic. By Tuesday, I have no clue what I'm going to say, but I'd come up with something and send it out. Poor Jenna. She gets this kind of vague idea what I'm going to talk about. And Linda, and she comes up with these awesome readings. So I figured, well, I'll get them to her early enough, and then she'll send me these great readings, and I can get some points out of that. And so that's the way it worked out this week. But she sent me two to choose from, so I'm going to use both of them. But she made an excellent point in this, and this one on Eva Longoria. I was ready to go kick someone's butt, but Lisa didn't go there. She immediately thought that someone must have needed the jacket more than her. In our rush to judge, in our rush to classify somebody as maybe special needs or as differently abled or disabled, sometimes we miss a powerful thing. And look at the brilliance of the sister. She must have thought that someone needed the jacket more than her. And then the end of this reading today. As we pursue our unique path, we become fully and truly alive. This is the rebirth. This is the resurrection. We become fully, truly alive. We express the individual self we were born to be. Each of us is on our own unique path in life, and we are called to step forward on it with confidence and commitment. So what is this one truth that's common to all of these stories? We've got everything, from Mithra and Horus and, Persephone. The ancient traditions, Ernest Holmes liked to find what he called the golden thread. It's a thing that's common to all of those. And I think that there's really an important golden thread in all of these stories. First of all, we are eternal. Every one of these has us being reborn, has us being regenerated, has us resurrected, coming back. Just as all of the cycles of the seasons come through, every spring we come back and we come back to life. The grass returns and it's green. The trees get leaves and we are reborn. Not only, in this world and this time, but in consciousness. We are continually and forever being reborn. And it is in that resurrection, it is in that rebirth where we recognize our oneness, where we are all one, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our religious beliefs or lack thereof, regardless of any of the things that we use to classify people. Beyond all that, we are one. And that is shown with our continual resurrection. All of these stories remind us that we don't die to become immortal. We are immortal now. Our contention is not that a dead person lives again, but that the living person can never die. Rather than exclusion, saying my way is correct and yours is not, let's try inclusion and the truth that is shared by being open to another person's perspective. Our theme for this month was diversity and inclusion. And originally I thought, how am I going to work that into an Easter talk? And I was, I guess, pulled to doing my usual Easter talk and the resurrection and the rebirth of consciousness. And I thought, there's something deeper going on here. And there really is a connection between this idea of diversity and inclusion and that of the Easter story. Tracy Brown wrote the book that is the backbone of this month's talks. She is a practitioner, and she happens to be the president of the Leadership Council for the Global Centers for Spiritual Living. And in her book, The Stained Glass Spirit, she wrote, ignoring the beauty and value and uniqueness of different types of people is equivalent to ignoring God and refusing to see all the ways that God shows up as humanity. Powerful. My second point is immortality. It can be said no plainer than right out of our statement of what we believe. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. I saw a good analogy of this, and it was done as a scuba diver. And a scuba diver, puts on their tanks and dives in, and they've got a finite amount of air that they have to go down. And if they dive and they go down, and the entire time they're worried about how much air do I have left? How much air do I have left? They never get to see the beauty of the fish and all the things around them, and they miss the opportunity to perhaps discover an ancient sunken vessel or some magnificent thing like that, because they're constantly worrying about how much air do I have left? How much air do I have? When in reality, they can go down and they can do those very things. And the timer will come when it tells them when it's time to go back. They need to go back, and the timer goes off, and they can return. And when they get back to the boat, the ship, when they get back to where they are, they can either put on a new tank and go back to that sunken treasure, that ship or whatever it is, that they can go back and look at the fish, or perhaps they can just sit on the deck of the boat and enjoy the sun and the air and being in that. But we are just like that. We are not confined, and if we spend our entire existence on this plane worrying about how much oxygen we have, we're missing the boat. And then when we focus on how much oxygen we have, we're missing our opportunity to embrace diversity. And it's in that diversity then that we can be inclusive. My third point is tomb time. Ernest Holmes wrote, this is from The Science of Mind. As the eagle, freed from its cage, soars to its native heights, so the soul, freed from the home of heavy flesh, will rise and return unto its Father's house, naked and unafraid. Man has a way with words. And it's just like our song, On the Wings of the Eagle. Too many of us have had parts of us killed by someone saying that we weren't good enough, pretty enough, valuable enough, talented enough. And right there we were crucified. Sometimes it may feel as though there isn't a tomb big enough to hold all of the parts that have died along the way, on the way of doing this thing called life. The part of you that has been invalidated, discriminated, humiliated, violated, rejected, misrepresented, betrayed, or otherwise degraded is the crucified self. The murderous projection of others can kill one's soul. Our life is a story of being born in love, and then the fear of difference starts dominating our journey, whether it's as a perpetrator or as a victim. Either way, as a perpetrator or a victim, it's when we go after that difference instead of our commonality. God's response and answer to crucifixion is resurrection, the raising of consciousness or transcendence, a healing, a sense of separation with the realization of love. This realization can take place with a pause from attack, so the remembrance of the divine has a space to rise again in one's field of awareness. Sometimes it takes time for wounds to dissipate and the physical to catch up with the elevation of awareness. And this is what I'm calling tomb time. This is the time between where we become aware that we have a huge advantage in diversity. That by being diverse and accepting everyone exactly where they are, at the time where we can actually put it into action, where we can actually be inclusive and let everybody into the game. It's not just being on the team, it's being in the game. And where we can get everybody into the game. That time when we're in between is what I call the tomb time. Coming back to life happens when we can hold on to love despite appearances. And the moment will come when it's time to roll a stone away from the tomb and step free what has been to what is now emerging. So the conclusion, what I want you to take away today. Feeling entombed by some rough times can happen. But after some tomb time, it's time to come back to life. Cultures from around the world from time immemorial have stories of returning to life. This earth plane is just one stopping place in the continuity of the individual soul that is forever and ever expanding. Step away from fear and get into the love that created all things and get back to action. The second reading that Linda sent me this week, I know it was from the magazine because she blew it up and sent it to me. But I don't know the month or the year or anything. But it's powerful and it's got some great parts in it. I recently read an anonymous quote that said, "While you were busy judging others, you left your closet open and your skeletons all fell out." When I was growing up, I made a judgmental statement about one of my neighbors. My grandmother said to me, "If only closed minds came with closed mouths." She then lectured me that when I judged other people, I was really judging myself. The world could use a lecture by my grandmother these days, as we judge others by so many criteria, including the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, or their faith path. Author Paulo Coelho stated powerfully, "We can never judge the lives of others because each person knows only their own pain and renunciation. It's one thing to feel that you are on the right path, but it's another to think that your path is the only path." Our completeness in life can only happen through acceptance and understanding of all paths. When we judge another, it is a call to accept ourselves first and then be able to accept others. And so it is with this awareness of our immortality, of our connection with one another, with our unity, with that which is common to each and every one of us, that I invite my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in just holding our congregation in love. Just simply recognizing that on this Easter Sunday, as we join the Christians and many other religions and faiths in honoring the resurrection of this time of year, honoring the rebirth of consciousness, the rebirth of our awareness of the power and the presence of the divine within our lives. And it is from that awareness of the presence of divine that we know that when we are in alignment, that divine presence works through us and for us. That divine presence creates all that is necessary for us in every way. whether it be health, whether it be abundance and prosperity, whether it be love and a feeling of separation. When we are in alignment with that higher power, when we are in alignment with the infinite intelligence, the divine creative force of the universe, it is all working with us and for us, for every situation. And so we just simply know that about each and every one of us, for we are all magnificent children of the Most High. We are all born with everything that we need to accomplish the mission that we have before us on this earthly plane. And so we just give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God. We give thanks for this magnificent Easter Sunday. We bless this food that we are going to enjoy after our service today. We bless those that have prepared it. And we step into this time of joy and fellowship with love in our hearts. And so now we can just go forward with that poise and confidence in life. We let it go, we let it be, and so it is.